Hi there, I'm Amanda, the Needlepoint Finishing Fairy, and welcome to class. Today, you are going to learn how to finish your first needlepoint round using no glue and the entire lacing method. What this means is that there's no glue holding the tabs down or holding the back of your canvas together. Everything's done by hand stitching. This is seen as a way to help preserve your needlework for years to come. So let's get started. If your canvas is a little bit out of square or isn't perfectly round, you're going to want to back up and go ahead and block that project. You can see a video for blocking your needlepoint canvas. I'll include the link right here. Once your project is blocked and round, it's time to go ahead and cut it out. I like to cut it out leaving around 3/4 of an inch to an inch all the way around. Now it is time to measure for your mat board. So you need the diameter of your canvas minus 2 stitches on each side. That equals 0.12 inches on each side. So you can either use digital calipers to get 2 stitches in, or you can do the math to subtract 0.24, 0.25 from your canvas diameter to get you the proper size for those circles. When you're done measuring, go ahead and cut your circles out. I like to cut one tiny bit inside of the pencil line, and then for the back, cut outside the pencil line. That will give you nearly the perfect size for the front and the back. Then it's time to cut your mat board. Using the front, I like to trace around the outside and then cut off some excess. And then here I am just kind of measuring and dry fitting those. Here you can see I'm roughly 2 stitches in from the edge of the canvas. Now it's time to cut. All right, now for the scary part, we're going to cut pretty close to our stitching, leaving one cell uncut. So you never want to cut the same cell that your stitching is in. You're aiming for one cell away. So cut all the way around, make your tabs. This will help remove bulk in your ornament so everything lays nice and flat on the inside. Then layer it up like a little sandwich and get your batting and then your mat board inside. And here I am just testing for fit a little bit, just making sure that everything looks good. If it does not look good, this is the time to stop. Here I am, I'm just writing the inside marker because this is kind of a tricky shape. Even though it's a circle, it's hard to kind of tell where the top is. So I'm lining up the top of the ornament with the top of the inside of my marker, and this will help me later on making sure the front and the back are lined up. Then when it's time to lace, go ahead and grab a length of DMC and pull it through your top tab with a knot at the end of it. And then what we're going to do is pull that tab down, put a little clip there, and aim for a tab at the bottom. Here we're just going to go ahead and get that clipped all the way around. I like to clip at north, south, east, and west. And we're just going to check for fit all the way around to make sure that our canvas wraps around the mat board and there's no canvas showing. And then this is really the key step to making sure that you don't have any mat board showing, any blank canvas showing when you're ready to go ahead and finish your project. Then we can proceed with lacing. So your goal here is to lace all the way across the ornament, so top to bottom, and then work your way around in a clockwise manner. And if you run out of floss, just go ahead and tie another length on and keep working your way around the project. Then I'm going to go ahead and knot off, and the front of our ornament is done. Let's take a look. Looks pretty good. I'm happy with the size of this and the roundness of it, and there's no canvas showing. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the back. So when I'm working with a silk Dupioni like this, I really like to use a fusible interfacing. I use either a lightweight or a midweight, and I iron this on the front side of my fabric just to get a good adhesion. And this helps give the fabric just a little bit of structure. Our next step is to wrap the back mat board with our fabric. So here's where that line comes in handy. We want to make sure that the line on the mat board is aligning to the grain of the fabric. I'm just trimming off some excess with my helper. And now we're going to be ready to lace. So again, we're going to start at the very top, pierce our needle, and then work our way around clockwise. I'm pulling pretty tautly, but not super tautly. I don't want to stretch the fabric, but I do want it to have a nice even tension all the way around. So I'm working relatively clockwise all the way around my ornament, and then when we're ready to tie off, we do it in the same manner as we did with the first side. And you can see here the piercings are around, I'd say about a ½ inch apart. To make sure that you don't end up with an octagon shaped ornament, it's important that those are fairly close together. So we'll go ahead and double knot to tie off. Got the excess and we're all set. So there's the back of our ornament. All right, now we're going to assemble. This part feels a little tricky and I think is one of the most important parts of the look of a final ornament. So what you're gonna need is a needle. I use number 7, sharps, and then a length of invisible thread. I'm actually using 6-pound fishing line here. You're gonna need some pins, some wonder clips, and then your scissors for this step. And then certainly you also need a pre-twisted cording, which I covered in the previous step. So what you're going to do is you're going to tie a knot at the very end of your fishing line. If you're working with invisible thread, you'll want to double length it, and then take the front and the back of your cookies and line up the arrows. So here's the back. It's kind of hidden, but you can see it there right at the top of my ornament, as well as the front, and that marks the grain of my fabric as well as the top of the design. So now I'm going to take a pin and just sink it right between the mat board and the back of my fabric. So I'm not piercing the mat board, I'm just running it right in front of the mat board on the other side of the fabric to mark where the top of my ornament is. And then I will do the front on in the same manner. I'll just grab a pin and pop it right in the top of my needlepoint side. So now you have the front and the back, and it's easy to line them up using those pins as a guide. So now take the length of your cording and we're going to get started. So you can use tape to secure the ends. I like to use knots and then cut them out. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the end off. And I'm going to attach that to the front of my ornament here on the needlepoint side. And I will use just a couple pins to secure that for the time being. I just sink them in and crisscross them. I'm not piercing the mat board, I'm just running the pin through the needlepoint canvas itself just to kind of hold on to that length of cording. Now match them up again. Tuck in any extra edges. You can snip those off, but no one's going to see them if you just tuck them inside. Now I'm going to grab some clips. I like to clip on just to have an extra hand free, and you can twist as you go around to get a nice even cording. And then periodically you're going to want to pin to the front of your ornament, running your pin right behind the needlepoint and next to the mat board. So here you can get a closer view. So I'm not sinking that into the mat board. I'm just kind of doing the same thing like I did on the top pin, running it between the needlepoint and the mat board. Now I'm going to go ahead and clip right here to hold those two pieces together and keep working my way around, pinning and clipping as you go. All right, now we're at the top. So you can see where the top of my cording is, where it enters the ornament. And I want to pin essentially one twist away from where that enters. So here you can see I'm going to pin right there, right next to the other twist. There's where it enters, and I'm going to pin right next to it. And then this is a good way to ensure that you're hiding that where it enters, and you can get a loop on the top, but it doesn't have 2 points on the ornament where it enters. It just has one nice single point. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to create the loop. You don't want to over twist it because it creates this loop like that, which is no big deal when you hang it on the tree. But if you loosen the tension just a little bit, you'll get a nice loop that lays nicely, that doesn't twist on itself. So here I need to loosen it just a little bit more for it to lay nicely. Now it's ready to insert, so I'll slide that right next to its friend on the inside. So you can see it's not overlapping, it's right next to its friend, to reduce some of the bulk that you'll encounter if you create too many layers. And I'll go ahead and sink a pin in, and that's a beautiful loop for us. So now that that's all pinned, I'll go ahead and clip the extra length off and tuck that in. Okay, so now we're ready to sew on. You can see here I cleared my work surface. Invisible thread loves to get tangled around stuff, so just make sure your surface is clear. And I thread up that invisible thread like we talked about. Look for number 7 sharps. I find that they're a good size to be working with. You can also work with a beading needle or something like that. And then put a pretty gnarly knot at the end of it. You won't see it, but you want to make sure it doesn't pull through. Here again, here's just a picture of the 6-pound fishing line that I use. So I start about 1 inch away from the loop. I don't like to start at the loop. That part's tricky. Let's leave that for last. There's a lot going on right in there. So let's get our motion going and then come back to that. So start about 1 inch away from the loop on the right-hand side and run your needle under the cording to the back of the fabric. So I run it under, I'm not touching the cording, and I'm popping through the back of the mat board. Popping through the fabric next to the mat board. You never run your needle through the mat board. You won't get through it and you'll be frustrated. So now we're just going to tuck that gnarly knot in there and pull it tight. And I'm just going to hide a little bit of this canvas using a little poker. This is a good trick if you have any canvas showing, just kind of poke it down in there. It works like a charm. See, now you can't see it at all. All right, let's proceed. So your first stitches are going to be pretty straight on. So take your needle and run it between these twists. So you never want to pierce the twist, but just run your needle right in between the two on the next twist there. So through the back, out the front, don't pierce those bundles, run your needle through the bundles and then out the front, and then sink your needle down in through the needle point right here. And then pop out the back fabric. You're not popping out the back mat board, you're popping out the back fabric. Now look for the next the next bundle, and run your needle under and through that bundle, never piercing it. Just kind of go where those different color changes would be, pull through, and now you can see kind of where the invisible thread wants to go. You kind of want to follow the direction of where the invisible thread wants to land. So I'm going to pierce through right here, pop through the back. And I'm holding it with that back finger just to maintain some tension. And again, I'm going to pierce through, running my needle under those color changes. And here I'm just kind of trying to untangle. Then you can see these stitches are a little bit long, so I just want to be careful of where my needle enters, because otherwise if you pull these stitches, it's going to look messy. So I want to follow the direction of the stitch and anchor it right in here, so then that way it doesn't pull any of the stitches. Instead of going in the direction of travel, I'm just going to follow that direction of the stitch back on through. It's just one of those tips that you have to kind of watch out for when you're working with long stitches. On the next stitch, I'll move more in the direction of travel. So now that we have a couple stitches in, we can skip a color change here. So obviously my cording doesn't have a color change, but you can start to kind of extend your stitches, not necessarily right next to each other. I like to go about a quarter of an inch apart. So I'll go ahead and sink my needle here. I'm trying to avoid those long stitches. And you can see I'm angling my needle towards my right hand, right on through, so then I can make a little bit more progress instead of doing those straight stitches. Here I'm showing you how it angles. Pull tight, hold it with that right hand, and let's move on to the next one. So skip that first color change, go in the next one, go straight down. I'm a little tangled, so just get that with your needle. And I'm looking for a spot to sink my needle in on the front. Make a little progress in the direction of travel using that angled needle technique. And away we'll go. So I'm just moving that clip along the way here. Now I'm going to enter that cording, find a good place to sink my stitch, pop out the back, and so on. Do that all the way around the ornament. All right, we're to the loop. Here you want to add a couple reinforcing stitches. So that means not taking your needle in the direction of travel, but doing a couple more straight stitches in this area to reinforce. So I'm going to remove some of these pins just to make it a little bit easier to work with. Just the ones that are holding that cording in place here. And I'm going to leave that pin in place, that one that is holding my front cording in its spot. So go ahead and sink your needle in the direction of travel, like a pretty short stitch here. You can see how I shorten up the stance. Pull tight. Sorry, this is not on camera, but pull through just like you were. Just some short stitches. This one will go through the loop right here. So I'm just going to pop that through. Pull tight, pinch, pinch. Pinching pretty hard at this point because I want those two cookies to pull together. And then just pop through the front. You want to make sure you're not piercing those bundles. You're going in between the two, pulling pretty tautly, and then following that down to where it would land on your stitches. Here it would land in a long stitch, so I'm just trying to find a perfect spot to sink that. And I'm angling my needle back towards where I was. That's because I want to do a couple more reinforcing stitches on that hanger. And here I'm going to enter relatively at the same spot and pop out at the same spot just because I do want to reinforce that area, and then I can move on. So take a couple more reinforcing stitches in this area, pull, just so everything is nice and taut. You kind of have to do a lot of zipping in. And then I'm going to sink my needle in this other side of the loop because you want it to hang straight. So taking a couple stitches on each side is advisable. So I'll pull through, just follow where that bundle wants to lead me on the front of my canvas, just like we did before. Pop out at the back, angling backwards just a little bit because I don't want to make too much headway in the direction of travel. I want to make sure I have enough stitches at the top. So in all, I take about 4 or 5 stitches right at the top there to make sure that everything is nice and reinforced, and then keep going. So once I get to where I started, I like to take a couple stitches overlapping the two areas where I've started and where I've ended, and I try to use the same holes for those reinforcing stitches as I wrap up the project. And then you'll go ahead and knot off, and you'll see I have a stray thread here. I'm just going to go ahead and knot off and lace that one through the back as well. No worries. So once you knot, then run your needle through your cording underneath it, popping out the back pretty close to the edge, and then you'll hear a little pop of the needle getting settled in there, and clip it off. And I'll do the same for that extra stray thread that I had at the start of my project. Take your pins out, and we'll do this last stray thread. This has a little bit of length to it, so it's easy to do with your hands. Pop that knot down as low as it can get, and then we'll thread the needle up with it and run it under a cording just like we did with the other end. couple times. This one has a knot at the end, so we just want to make sure that that's not going to come loose, and cut it at the base. Now you have your beautiful ornament. So it's my honor to be the first to say congratulations on finishing your first needlepoint round with me. So maybe you finished a round in the past, but this is the first one together. So I'm really excited for you. I hope you enjoyed this process. I hope you learned a lot. If you're interested in continuing your journey, a great next tutorial would be the squares and rectangles. That's another really fabulous beginner project. I hope that you take a minute and follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Finishing Fairy. I'm also on Facebook as the Needlepoint Finishing Fairy, so you can find me over there. And I regularly post quick tips or ideas or upcoming events, resources, and things like that that are free and open to the needlepoint community. And I hope that you take a minute to consider joining our Substack community, where you'll find a lot more process tutorials, very detailed guides like the one that you saw here, as well as additional finish-alongs and events that are exclusive to subscribers. So congratulations again. Really excited to see you on the internet.